Shalom Aleichem, good morning. Welcome to our viewers on Torah Anytime as well. I want to dedicate the shir for the Atzlacha of Ben Zion Ben Dosa. Him and his family should have success in Mitzvah Hashem in all their endeavors. Today I'm about Simcha B'Chazdei Hashem from last night. Many people asked, when is the new Sefer coming out? So B'Chazdei Hashem. The new Sefer is out. It's called Kuntes HaShichecha VeHaZikaron. This came out in Hebrew and English 14 years ago. In English it was called Brain Power. And it's Sgulos for memory. 14 years ago it had 200 Sgulos for memory, Sgulos and advice from Chazal, Rishonim and Achronim, many things that Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal told me. But over the last 14 years, it ran out very, very shortly after it came out, and Baruch Hashem, it grew. Now it has 400 Sgulos and advice from Chazal, Rishonim and Achronim. Many things that I was zoichet to ask Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal on memory, and he is the master of memory, so he should know. This Sefer has a special chart at the beginning to be able to follow and fill in 101 cubes, 101 tractates in Mishnahs, and the same thing in the back, a beautiful chart for 101 little boxes of the Gemara, because one of the things that we know for memory is a reviewing, a segula for reviewing 101 times is a tremendous segula for memory, and one who does so 101 times, especially with the assistance of this chart, Mitzvah Hashem will be able to retain everything that he learns. This Sefer just came out in Hebrew last night, but Mitzvah Hashem soon the English version will come out. It's going to be called Brain Power again, but it's Mamish Panim Chadashos Ba'olekan. It's a new Sefer completely with a lot of new material, not just the segulos and advice, a lot of different things about memory. How to decrease forgetfulness, and how to, in Mitzvah Hashem, increase our brain power, our memory, so we can retain what we learn. I want to thank all those who were involved in producing this Sefer. It took some time, only 14 years, but B'Chazdei Hashem, it's here, and in Mitzvah Hashem, it should be Leto'eles. So today we're speaking about Vayikra and about Inyan Dayoima, Purim. We're starting with Vayikra. There's a medrash in Yalkut Shimoni, Parshas Tzav, Remez Taf Ayin Tes, and the medrash says, why is it that we start teaching the kids Dafka Chumash Vayikra? In most places they start Vayikra. Those places that start Bereshis, the first day or the first week they'll spend a little time on Vayikra to fulfill the words of this medrash. But why is it? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself speaks, and whenever Chazal speak on behalf of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's kind of exciting to hear HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaking. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, since the little kids, they're pure, and my korbanos are pure, and Chumash Vayikra is all about korbanos, therefore yavohu tehorim v'yisasku betaharos. Let the pure ones come and deal in matters of purity. That's what the Medrash says, but maybe a new idea. Why Dafka we start with Chumash Vayikra for little kids? Vayikra is a little aleph. Vayikra el Moshe, a small little aleph. Why? So Rabbi Seinu bring that that's a remez to humility. The Rosh of the Torah. Rabbi Seinu Arishonim, he says, because Moshe was anav mikol ha'adam, and he made himself small, therefore the aleph is small. This is well known. But the Rosh brings a medrash that the letter aleph itself came to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why are you starting Chumash Vayikra, Torah's Kohanim, with me? I don't feel comfortable. I don't like it. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, look, if I take you off completely, it's not good. Then it's going to be Vayikar el Moshe, and that's the same language I used when I called Bilam. Vayikar el Bilam, it's not so covered to Moshe, not very nice. So the Aleph told HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Aleph asked HaKadosh Baruch Hu, maybe you can do something. I really feel uncomfortable, so future generations will know that I'm uncomfortable with this. I don't want to be at the head. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, fine, since you make yourself small, I'll make the Aleph small. That's what the Medrash says. It comes out that the letter Aleph is all about Anava. It's humility. The humility of Moshe Rabbeinu and of the letter Aleph itself. Nun Dalet Amud Aleph, we learn, it appears here in this Sefer, Anava is a segula for memory. Not only that, Pasuk in Mishle says, Ekev Anava Yiras Hashem. If one has Anava, he will have Yiras Hashem. And Yiras Shamayim is also a segula for memory. Mimele, we start the little kids with Vayikra, because now they're learning Torah on the basis of these two foundations of Torah. You must have Anava. Anava will lead to Yiras Hashem, and both will lead Emetz Hashem to memory, to retain everything that one learns.
Also, it's a new beginning. It's a new sefer. It's a new sefer.
Yeah, so start with Bereshis Shmois.
No,
Interesting stories. Why do you have to go to the third sefer?
now it's changes now. Changes now. We're talking about Vayikra, about Karbonos. We're talking about how we live our lives now, not what was in the past.
Vayikra is not now. Korbanos is not now.
No, but it shows that what will be when we have.
So using the same rationale, you can start with the stories of the Avos and learn from them and walk in their ways, past, present, and future.
But this is the physical way that we,
Okay.
we live our lives when we have it when we have it.
Okay.
We start off small.
With that, we can understand a pasuk, Malachi, Zichru Toiras Moshe Avdi. Zichru, you want to remember? You want to remember your learning? So learn from Toiras Moshe, who was the most humble person. What was his praise? He kept saying of himself, who am I? I'm an Eved of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the biggest thing that I can say about myself. If you're going to learn from Moshe to be humble like him, Zichru, you're going to remember. And with that we can understand another Zgula that appears in this new Sefer. And that is Motzei Shabbos, to say 49 times, starting tomorrow night, this pasuk. Zichru Toiras Moshe, saying it 49 times is Zgula for memory. What's the connection? Moshe alludes to Anava. Anava leads to memory. Why 49? Because 49 gates of wisdom that Moshe was able to attain. Maybe.
Wow.
Somebody asked me, since the pasuk starts with a small aleph, the gematria, the numerical value of an aleph is 1. So what's the numerical value of a small aleph? If a regular aleph is 1, a small aleph is worth only 1/2? How does that work? I told him I think it's the opposite. Exactly the opposite. This aleph, as we said, is all about anava. And if that's the case, the gematria of an aleph like this is the way aleph is spelled in its entirety. How is aleph spelled? Aleph, lamed, fei, and that is elef. If a regular aleph is worth 1, I think the half aleph, a small aleph, is worth 1,000. And with that we can understand why later in Dvarim, Moshe Rabbeinu blesses Klal Yisrael. Hashem Elokei Avosechem, Yosef Alechem, Kachem, 1,000 Pamim. You should increase your numbers by 1,000-fold. Why 1,000? Because in Yalkut, in the Tanya and Sfarim HaKadoshim, the Ramchal also brings in Sefer Adi B'Marom, Moshe Rabbeinu was reincarnated in each and every one of us. There's a nitzot, the spark of Moshe Rabbeinu in each and every one of us. So Moshe says, if you guys are going to hold on to the midah that I became famous for, midah of anava, mimele imirtze Hashem. You're going to use the small aleph like I did, you're going to be imirtze Hashem, increased by 1,000. In other words, this gematria of 1, half a small aleph is not 1, it's worth maybe 1,000. So this Chumash is all about Korbanos. I went to Yerushalayim this week, looked for Beis HaMikdash. Unfortunately, B'avoseinu Arabim, it's still not there. But I really want to bring Korbanos today. Is there a way for us to bring Korbanos today? And I'm not talking about davening, that we know the Pasuk says, U'nishalma, Farim, Sfaseinu, or lip service. Davening is instead of Korbanos. I'm not talking about that. I'm also not talking about the Gemara in Menachos Kuf Yud, where the Gemara says if you learn the halachos of a mitzvah that you can't fulfill, it's counted as if you fulfilled the mitzvah. I'm not talking about that. Is there another way that one can bring Korbanos today? Or maybe even greater than Korbanos? Two possible answers.
Some people have, like, for example, I've seen previous years, you sign on for Korban Pesach, and
you signed on, you didn't do the mitzvah.
No,
if it comes, and if not, so all you did was had your name somewhere.
If you stop you trying to clean the sheep up on Tarbias, then you consider owners. As if you
That's called on Pesach. One say, I want to do today. Can you sign up today? Too early. I said not davening. Not davening and not learning the halachos of Korbanos, which you're right. Two more answers.
I think I know that a goy can bring a korban today.
I eat.
I know it's kind of.
What do I care what they do? I want to bring a korban today. I went to Yerushalayim, there was no Beis HaMikdash.
Basically, we can do. Someone can do a korban on this road.
Eid, you and me. Today.
Is he okay? He's not converting, maybe.
Today, you and me. You have any plans for today? Convert? The answer is Eliyankul Shimon in the Medrash. In Hosea, Remez, Taf, Kuf, Chaf, Beis. Listen to our language of the Medrash. Once the Medrash says, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai was walking in Yerushalayim, and Rabbi Yeshua was walking behind him. And when Rabbi Yeshua saw the Beis HaMikdash and its destruction, he said, Oy lanu, woe to us, for this house which is destroyed, and this is where we used to have an atonement for all our sins. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai said to him, Bini, my son, al yera lecha, don't feel so bad. We have a different atonement, which is exactly like it. And what is it? Ze gemilus chasadim. Therefore, the pasuk says in Hosea, Perek Vav, pasuk Vav, Ki chesed chafatzti veloi zavach. I want your chesed, said the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and I don't want your korbanos. The Medrash continues. Amar HaKodesh Baruch Hu. So now we found something which is comparable to korbanos, right? But the Medrash continues. Chaviva lai chesed she'atem goim lim ze im ze. It is more dear to me the chesed that you do with one another, yoiser mikol hazevach, more so than all the korbanos Shlomo HaMelech brought. How many korbanos did Shlomo HaMelech bring every single day? 1,000 korban oila every day. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says it's more dear to me when you do chesed to one another. So that's one way. Minus chesed. There's another way. Zohar HaKodesh. Zohar HaKodesh in Parshas Vayikra, Daf Kuf Amud Aleph. We said before, if you learn the halachos of certain korbanos, it's like bringing a korban. But you don't need to learn those halachos. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu explained to Moshe in our parsha how the korbanos work, what do you bring, how to bring it, how does it work, Moshe said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono Shel Olam, that's all great when they have Beis HaMikdash. And what's going to happen when they don't have Beis HaMikdash? What then? When they go to exile, what should they do then? Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, Moshe, Yasku b'Torah ve'ani moichel lahem. Just learn Torah, and I will forgive them bishvila, for the sake of Torah. Yoiser mikol hakorbanos sheba'ilam, more so than all the korbanos in the world. How does the Zohar know this? Shenema, because the pasuk says, Zos haTorah le'oila ulemincha ulechatas ve'la'asham. Zos haTorah, this Torah that you're learning is instead of an oila, is instead of a korban of mincha, instead of an asham, instead of a shlamim. Nothing like Torah. So now we know Torah and Minus Chasadim, more dear to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He forgives us for all our sins, and more dear to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, more so than all the korbanos. You want to say something?
There's another way. I think maybe I've told the story about Alizal, when he was a poor person in Sabat, who used to, you think, because his son left him and told her to Hashem, he used to bake a lot, eat Shabbos and leave him in Yom Kodesh.
Right.
So that also was a kind of compliment, wasn't it?
Sort of. I don't know if it's more dear to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I don't have a chazal on this. Here I have a Yalkut Shimoni and I have a Zohar. It has a lot of weight. We're moving to Purim. What's the maila of this day? How great is this day? She'iltos de Rav Achai. Rav Achai, go on. She'ilta samech zayin. Listen to our language. Mechayvei beis Yisrael lemeichal or lemishtei bepuraya. Klal Yisrael must eat and drink on Purim. Ve'oduyei ve'shabchuyei kamei shmaya. And thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu and praise Him. Al kol nisaya de avid leon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We must praise Him and thank Him for all the miracles that He performed for us. As the pasuk says, Dichsiv la'asos oisam yemei mishteh ve'simcha. These should be festive, happy days. Great. And now He says another line. Ve'adif yoma de puraya keyom shenisna boy Torah. We always knew that Purim is compared to Yom Kippurim. Now we see another comparison. It's like the day the Torah was given. Where does he learn it from? Because Mar Beid Ravina, the Gemara says, Mar Beid Ravina used to fast the entire year, except for the 2 days of Shavuos, first and second day, and except for the 2 days of Purim. So he compared the two. 2 days of Purim, the Torah was given. 2 days of Purim, 2 days of Shavuos when the Torah was given. 2 days of Purim where unbelievable miracles were performed to Klal Yisrael. I think this gives a new perspective to what Chazal say in Shabbos Peiches. Hadur kiblu b'mei Achashverosh. We received again the Torah on Purim, so it's just like the day of Shavuos. It's interesting, if you look here clearly what Mar Beid Ravina used to do. He used to fast the entire year. That means he did fast on the second day of Sukkot, He did fast the second day of Pesach. He fasted on Erev Yom Kippur, where there is a mitzvah to eat from the Torah. The Ha'amek Sha'ila on Sheiltos, the Rav Achai deals with this, but it's just interesting. Lemaisa, the Sheiltos says, it's just like the day of Shavuos. Another high-level day, more so than what we thought, just a day, big day, after drink, it's like Kippurim, another day, just like Ma'amad Har Sinai.
2 days, the second day of Pesach, second day of Sukkot.
Then he apparently would fast, which is a big Chiddush. But he wouldn't fast on the second day of Shavuos, and he didn't fast on the 2 days of Purim.
Chutz or here?
In Chutz La'aretz. Mistam Chutz La'aretz. It's got to be in Chutz La'aretz. Rabbi said we have a bunch of riddles. Is there any connection between Lulav and Megillah Esther?
Can't carry it.
Yeah. Hadassah. Hadassim.
What about Hadassim?
Esther's name. Hadassah.
Stretch.
Can't be Gazul.
Are clear, and then nothing can be Gazol. Yeah, Kodesh Baruch Hu said, don't steal. We learn in Parsha, and this is this Parsha, Vayikra. You should bring a Korban Mikem. Says Rashi over there, brings on the Medrash, not something which is stolen, just like Adam Arishon brought from something that belonged to him. Don't take anything which is stolen. Nothing can be stolen. But what's the connection? Clear connection only applies to Lulav and Megillah Esther.
The Lulav and Megillah.
Yafeh. Mishnah Bua Taf Reish Tzadi, Seif Nun Beis. When you get to the words Al Kol Divrei Ha'igeret Azot, you have to shake. You don't have to go to all directions, you know, like Mekubalim to do direction. You don't have to. But you have to shake a little the Megillah that the Mishnah Bua says, and just like you have to shake the Lulav. Now again, we're not comparing the directions, we're just comparing the shaking effect. Licheoira, this applies to the Baal Koire. But from the language, most understood it applies to the Baal Koire only and not to the people who are listening. But there's no indication that in the language of the Mishnah Bua and Licheoira, anyone who's holding a Megillah in his hands should do it. Reb Chaim Kanievsky used to do it, and Reb Chaim also said he used to do it in another place in the Megillah. Et Igeres Hapurim Hazot Shenit, he used to shake his Megillah again.
He wasn't the Baal Koire.
No, when he's not a Baal Koire, just when he's listening.
We also you don't bring on Shabbos. Also on Shabbos, you're not going to shake the Lulav, you don't bring the Megillah.
Correct. But I like this because it's an unknown halach. I like to teach halachas through questions because that's how people remember. This everybody knows.
I'm just trying to get points.
You got a quarter of a point. You got Baruch Hashem.
There are some people who hold the Lulav during Shmoneh Esrei.
It's not that they hold it dafka Shmoneh Esrei. They would hold it throughout, even during Shmoneh Esrei. That's the chiddush there. Rabbi say, anyone who needs to hear lechatchila, only half a Megillah. We're not talking about a person who made of, we're not talking about sick people. Everybody is healthy, 100% Baruch Hashem. He has a lot of time on his hands. No nedarim. He is not a half an eved, complete yid. And yet, lechatchila should only listen to half a Megillah.
Yotza, it is more than
I didn't say yotze, not yotze. I said he has to listen to half a Megillah only. How can this be? He's not a doctor about to run into the operating room. He has time. He's healthy. Only half a Megillah. Whatever you choose. Maybe leave the first quarter, leave the last quarter, and only give him the middle. Half.
And then you went out and just interrupted, you get to come back here.
Why?
Half is not enough.
Why should he go out? Lechatchila, he only has to listen to half. That's it. Is there a mitzvah to bring the kids din chinuch to hear the Megillah? Yeah. Says Maran Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal, if the kids only has patience to listen to half a Megillah, you still have the mitzvah of chinuch to give him half a Megillah. Rabbi Elioshiv doesn't agree, and he says this kid is just not ready. Wait, mitzvah Hashem next year, maybe tomorrow. Right now he's not ready. Reb Chaim holds no. Reb Chaim holds lechatchila. You have to give him only half a Megillah. He's healthy. He is a Jew. Plenty of time, but he doesn't have patience to sit more than half a Megillah. Give him half a Megillah. I don't care which half, and it's yours. And you're yours. The mitzvah of chinuch. How old was Mordechai when he died? How long did Mordechai live for? 200 years. 400 years. Incorrect. How long did Mordechai live for? Mordechai Yehudi. Menocha Samech Daled Amud Beis, Rashi brings that when the Mishnah in Shkalim, Perek Hey, I think Mishnah Aleph, talks about Psachya, that is Mordechai, And Mordechai was in charge of the kinim, the pair of birds in Beis Hamidrash, the pair of doves for the Metzoira, for the Yoledet, for the Zavozava. That is the same Mordechai from all the way back then. According to that, the Sefer HaDoros brings it, he was more than 400 years old. Tosfos doesn't agree. Tosfos says, what? How old can it be? More than 400 years? And Tosfos therefore says that everybody who was appointed there in Beis Hamidrash was named Mordechai. For Mordechai, the original one, but it's not the same. It's not the same one. According to Rashi, according to Seder HaDoros, it is the same Mordechai. Mordechai came back in a Gilgul. He was reincarnated. Gemara in Shabbos Nun Gimel Amud Beis talks about a guy who was very poor. His wife died, and he didn't have money to afford to pay for a lady who will nurse his kid. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu performed an unbelievable miracle, and this guy nursed his own kid. Machlokes Abaye and Rav Yosef there in the Gemara. Abaye says, look how terrible this guy is. And Rav Yosef says, look how amazing this guy is. What does that mean? According to this, we can understand. Mordechai is this guy. He came back in a Gilgul. So Abaye says, look what happened to this guy. He was Mishnah LaMelech HaChashverosh. He was second in command. And now he doesn't even have money to afford paying a few dollars to this lady to nurse his own kid. Because he's separated from Torah. He lost all his glory. Rav Yosef says, look at this guy, unbelievable. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does miracles for him back then, and he still does miracles for him back here. Unbelievable. That's the machlokes. Others bring that Mordechai is a Gilgul of Yaakov Avinu. Haman is a Gilgul of Esav. And now we understand why Mordechai insists not to bow down. Because Mordechai wanted to rectify the first time around when they met. And he did bow down. He was Yaakov, he bowed down to Esav. The Shechina Kedosha was there according to the Zohar, but Pshat, he bowed down to his brother Esav. Now he comes and he rectifies it, even though according to Tosfos this was no Avodah Zarah. Haman just wanted people to bow down to him. No Avodah Zarah, he could bow down to him, but you need to rectify what he did the first time around, and therefore now he insists, and he doesn't bow down to Haman.
So he's buried next to Esther. But how old was Esther? When did Esther?
Who told you he's buried next to her?
They have the kever
They have the kever where?
in Iran.
I think in 3 different places there's the kever.
No?
In Iran there's one place, and in Eretz Yisrael there's 2 other places. So I'm not sure who's buried next to whom and who is where people are buried. Not sure. Give me a picture from what goes on under, maybe we'll be able to talk about it. Rabbi Isai,
What's the Masorah where they are? Is there Masorah?
there is. Depends who you ask. If you go to Iran, they'll tell you exactly where there is, and they go there every year. And here up north there's also Masoris. Don't think we know?
Shushan. It's by Shushan.
Where are the places you
Outside the city. I don't know exactly where, somewhere north.
Maximum, the city put up the Hamas flag, the kever.
Yeah? Machshemam v'zecham. One of the commentaries of the Rambam found in Megillah Esther. Who's he? One of the famous commentaries on the Rambam. On the daf, printed on every Rambam. Found in Megillah Esther. Mishneh LaMelech. Rabbi Yehuda Rozanis from Turkey, about 300 years ago. He wrote Mishneh LaMelech, Parshas Dachim, and a few other Sfarim as well. Many countries are mentioned in the Megillah. What country is mentioned in the Megillah that had no Ashkenazim? Who told you? Were you there? Why more so than Madai? Let's ask another question. Maybe it's connected to the first question. Where is Ethiopia in the Megillah?
One of the 127 nations.
Why is Cush Ethiopia?
I think
Why is Cush Ethiopia? Perek Aleph, Pasuk Yud Aleph. Lehedia, it says Ethiopia. Leharos ha'amim ve'hasarim Ethiopia. Ethiopia is Ethiopia, but only if you're Ashkenazi. Because otherwise it's going to be Ethiopia. So Ashkenazim, Mistama, were not there. I'm sorry, I said only if you're Ashkenazi. Only if you're Sephardi. Ethiopia is Ethiopia. But if you're Ashkenazi, you're going to read it Ethiopia, and you're going to wreck the country. So Mistama is a country without any Ashkenazim. That's why it's called Ethiopia. Pashut. That's the same. Last week we asked where's a big Sephardi Tana in the Megillah, and that's Big Tana Vateresh, Big Tana. He can't be Ashkenazi because there will be Big Sana. That's not a Big Tana. Rabbi said, what's the connection? Only on Purim we can ask this. What's the connection? Is there a connection between Moshe Rabbeinu and Achashverosh? Yalkut Shimoni Remez Kuf Sameches and Shemois. Achashverosh was the king over Cush. Moshe Rabbeinu was also a king over Cush for 40 years. How can it be? There's a city. Imagine Bet Shemesh. When do we read here? On the 14th or the 15th? 14th. Can it be that there's a city, an entire city, that has to read on the 14th? But in the middle of the day, middle of the 14th, the halachic status of this city changes, and now they have to read on the 15th. Can it be? I'm sorry?
Find out it's a whole city.
No, we know it's the same city. Something happens, and now it changes. They used to read it on the 14th. In the middle of the day, we'll come to them and say, oh, no. You have to read it tomorrow. Can this be?
The building line is completely connected to Jerusalem. Like the areas that connected to Jerusalem, like Lamont, and used to live in Lamont. It has been looking on both days. Now,
So what happened on the 14th in the middle of the day?
they finished the building.
Oh, similar, very good. The Mishnah Bura, the Biur Halacha, and Tafresh Pei Ches says, a walled city, how is it defined as a walled city to allow it to read on the 15th? If there are a lot of homes, a lot of houses there, and then they build a wall, that's not called a walled city. If you build a wall around Bet Shemesh right now, you're not going to read on the 15th. But if first of all there was a wall, and then they build some houses, that's called a walled city. Great. What if there is a city, and we go after the majority? The Biur Halacha says we go after the majority of the homes. In other words, there's a lot of houses there. Some were built before the wall, and some were built after. If most of them were built before the wall, this is not called a walled city, and they read on the 14th. So this city we're talking about, that's its status. There are many homes there. Most of them were built before the wall, and therefore they read on the 14th. But they built a lot of new homes. They brought caravans or something, I don't know. They put them after the wall, and now the ratio has changed, and the majority of the homes in town are homes that were built after the wall. Halachic status changes, it's called a walled city, and now they will have to read on the 15th. One has only one bottle of wine. He finds himself Purim morning, all the stores are closed, he also doesn't have any money. What should he do? Should he use this bottle of wine for today, for the mitzvah of Mechayev Inish Levesumi Bepuraya, or he knows he's not going to have any other wine coming in next month? Should he keep it for next month, Pesach, 4 glasses of wine? What is better? Should he drink it today or save it for Leil HaSeder, 4 cups of wine?
Leil HaSeder is a chiyuv,
Yeah.
and drinking wine on Purim is an Indian.
Indian. Let's look at the Shulchan Aruch, Orach Chaim, Taf Reish Tzadi Seif Beis. He quotes the Gemara, Megilla Daf Zayin Amud Beis. Mechayev inish levesu. Mechayev inish levesu. Indian. Mechayev.
The Sume doesn't say wine.
Oh, what is that? Sweets we said last week, right? I'm sorry?
I heard once you said they're not using mechayev to mean, if we normally use it as mechayev. It just means it's a very strong...
Big Indian. Not a small Indian, a big Indian.
A big Indian to do, but it's not a chiyuv. It's not written in the halacha.
What about Zrizin Magdim LeMitzvahs?
מצווה באה לידה אל תחמיצנה.
Mitzvah ba'alad chal tachmitzena. A mitzvah comes your way, jump on the opportunity. Zrizin Magdimin LeMitzvahs. The Mishnah Bura and Simon Tzadi brings a Radbaz, famous Radbaz, that says, there's a Yid who is in prison, and the minister comes to him, the Goyish minister, and he says to him, listen, if you want, I can release you for one day. You can go to shul. He says, oh, that'll be great. He says, for what day do you want to go? Do you want to go today, tomorrow morning? Or maybe you want to save it for a big day? You have a lot of mitzvahs on Yom Kippur, other days on the calendar. Which one should you prefer?
No.
Says the Radbaz right now. Why? Zrizin Magdim LeMitzvahs. And you don't put on the scale the weight of the mitzvah. Oh, there's a lot of mitzvahs, and here there's only one mitzvah. We don't look at that. A mitzvah comes your way, you do it. Another example the Radbaz brings, a patient or a person who is not so healthy, and the doctors say, you can't fast twice in a week. So what should he do? Should he fast some Gedalia, or a week later he should fast Yom Kippur? He can only do one. Lichora, we would say, of course you should fast Yom Kippur. What's some Gedalia compared to Yom Kippur? What are you talking about? This is the Oraisa. And yet the Radbaz says fast on Tzom Gedalia. You have a mitzvah comes your way, seize the opportunity. Oh, comes next weekend, you can't fast? Oinus, Rachmana Patra, you're boinus, what can you do? Not everybody agrees. The Chacham Tzvi doesn't agree. The Chacham Tzvi goes to town against him. But even the Chacham Tzvi will say that this is when we're talking about similar type of mitzvahs, but not two different types level of mitzvah. Mishte v'simcha on Yom Tif, on Purim, it's Divrei Kabbalah. It's the Nevim. It's like the Oraisa. The 4 cups of wine is only Adei Rabbanon. So Lichoira, even the Chacham Tzvi would admit here that you have to prefer Purim over Pesach. But
Purim over Pesach?
Purim right now over Pesach. But the Maharil, Shal Shuvas Maharil, the Biur Halacha brings in Tafrei Sadihei, says what you said before. Mechayev inish levesume is a mitzvah. You're going to check in the mail if you do it. But it's not le'ikuva. If you didn't do it, they're not going to tell you, oh, what did you do? You didn't do it. Mistama, you're engaged in other mitzvahs. There are other mitzvahs. Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam is also a big mitzvah. It's not le'ikuva. As opposed to the language of the Shulchan Aruch or Chaim Siman Taf Ayin Beis, that if one doesn't have money, a person who's sustained from the tzedakah, afilu ani hamispardes min tzedakah, that's Shulchan Aruch says. What should he do? He should sell his shirt. He should hire himself. He should work for someone or borrow money as long as he can have money enough to buy wine for 4 cups of wine. So you see, that's a complete obligation, and Purim is not. It's not leikuva. Sha'arei Tshuva in Tafrei Sadihei brings from the Gemara, Reb Yehuda Bar Ilai had a problem drinking wine. It would cause him an unbelievable headache, so he only drank from Pesach. Pesach till Pesach. In other words, once a year on Pesach he drank. And he had such a terrible headache until Shavuos. Says the Sha'arei Tshuva, and why didn't he drink on Purim? Purim comes before Pesach. After Shavuos he's fine. So the next holiday that comes his way is Purim, not Pesach. Why is he not drinking? You see that he preferred to do a complete mitzvah, a complete obligation, which is Pesach, and not do Purim. So that will take prioritization. And the same thing will apply if you have a beautiful, expensive Mehuda wine. Should you use it on Purim or Pesach? You should save it for Pesach. Because on Purim, there's no Indian to get drunk dafka from a beautiful type of wine. All you need to do is whatever you have, wine that works, it works. But if you keep it for Pesach, you have Simchas and Oneg Yontef, and that will override the chiyuv to get drunk. However you're going to get drunk, all you need is wine. It doesn't have to be a very mehudar type of a wine.
Another question, if you like the mitzvahs today, or bigger mitzvah, the right...
That's Tzom Gedalia and Yom Kippur.
Okay, so who says you'll be alive on Yom Kippur? Yeah, now you're alive. Who says you'll be alive on Yom Kippur?
Only if you're Reb Meir, you're choshesh to that. Reb Meir chayash lemisa. Everybody else is not choshesh. We're not afraid that people will die. Only Litvaks and Reb Meir are choshesh. Rabbi say a riddle.
When we say makdim in the mitzvahs, the thought just occurred to me. Certain times we don't say it, like for example, the machlokas between Ashkenazim and Sephardim.
Kiddush Levana. Right.
Because Ashkenazim would do it after 3 days.
I think maybe in Parshas Bo we discussed that in length. Ayin Sham. Pasuk and Esther.
Did we give a final stock on that?
Yeah, in both cases, both the Yain Mehuda, or if you only have one bottle, save it for Pesach over Purim. Because Purim is not mitzvah leikuva. It's a mitzvah, not leikuva. Esther Perek Aleph Pasuk Yudal. We learn about 7 ministers that saw the king. והקרוב אליו קרשנה ששר אדמסה שר שיש מרס מרסנה ומוכן שיבס שרי פרס ומדי רואי פני המלך. The 7 ministers that saw the king. Any nafkamina to us today? 7 ministers who saw the king. Shkoyach back then. Any shaykhus to us today?
So Be'ayir?
What about them?
7.
You have a source? 7. But who told you that's a connection? Unless you provide with a source. You have a source for me? I also don't. Rabbi say? Megilla Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. Why do you have 7 aliyos to the Torah on Shabbos? The Gemara uses this pasuk. Shivas royei pnei hamelech. Every melech in the Megillah alludes to the real melech HaKodesh Baruch Hu, unless it says the melech HaChashverosh. Here it doesn't. Shiva Soye, the 7 those who go up to see the king, those are the people who get the aliyah. The Gemara uses this 7 to correspond to the 7 aliyahs that we have every Shabbos. You know, there was a rich guy in the States. His name was Man. This is like an asmachta. The Gemara brings 5 people on Chol HaMoed, 6 people on Yom Kippur, 7. Each one, the Gemara brings a pasuk. One of the psukim that is brought for the 7 aliyos on Shabbos is this pasuk. There was a rich guy in the States. His name was Man. You know, like Rav Shach was his name. Elazar Menachem Man Shach. His name was Man. So the guy from Eretz Yisrael who traveled there, and he wanted to ask him for some money. And he came and he gave him the whole spiel. The guy didn't give him not even $1. So this guy looks at this rich guy and he says to him, I want to give you a bracha. You want to give me a bracha? It's so nice. Yes, Mitzvah Hashem. You should be like Avraham Avinu. He says, wow, that's really amazing. I didn't give you $1. Didn't even offer you water to drink. And you give me a bracha to be like Avraham Avinu. Wow. Shekoyach to you. He says, yeah. Should be zoiche. You know, Avram got a bracha from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the letter Hey was added to his name. Now he's Avram. In Mitzvah Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should also add the letter Hey to your name, and from Man you're going to be Haman, because you're stingy just like him. Rabbi said, it's Purim. There was another Israeli who came from Yerushalayim. He came to New York, and they told him there's a very, very rich guy here. Very, very rich. But he can't bother him now. He's standing in the middle of Mincha. He says, it's okay. I also need to daven. So he stands right next to him in the middle of Mincha, and everybody's quiet, Mincha, but suddenly this poor guy from Yerushalayim raises his voice when he gets to the words, V'ten sachar tov! In the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. 3 seconds later, the rich guy raises his voice when he says, V'liyerushalayim mircha berachamim tashuv! With mercy, go back to where you came from. Why do we bang and we make noise when you hear Haman?
We erase his name. We erase his name.
So write the letter Haman and take an eraser and erase it.
Put it on their,
True, but I'm not asking about that minhag. That's the Ben Ish Chai brings. The Ben Ish Chai says, take a pen. If you want to start, if you bought a new pen, you want to see if it works. So the first thing you should do, write Haman and erase it. But I'm asking about banging, like we all do.
To erase the sound, we put another sound that cancels the other sound. So when we make noise, we erase, so to speak, the sound.
You have a source? I like that. You have a source? Good. We're looking for sources, Rabbi said. Sefer Mat'amim says, Haman is mentioned in the Megillah 54 times. The pasuk says, Macho Emche. The end of Parshas Beshalach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm going to erase his name. Macho Mem Ches Hey is 53. Imakoiled with the word itself is 54. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Macho, erase 54 times the person who's mentioned 54 times in the Megillah. That's Sefer Mat'amim. The Shach on the Torah, Sifsei Kohen from the disciples of the Arizal. The end of Parshas Beshalach, he says a different idea using the same words. Macho Emche is 107 in Gematria. And that's the same numerical value as the words Ze Haman. So the Torah itself told you to do it. Is there another remez that we can find in the Torah? Torah itself says, bang and make noise, hit, when you hear Haman's name. Mamish, it says Lehedya and Parshas Kiseize. The pasuk says, V'haya im bin hakot harasha. If you have to give lashes, you have to strike the person who is wicked. The ending letters of these 3 words, V'haya im bin, V'haya ends with a letter Hey. Im ends with a letter Mem. Bin ends with a letter Nun. Haman. And what's the next 2 words? Hakos harasha. You have to hit the wicked. Mamish Lehedya, it says. There's a chiddush in the Hagos of Sam Sofer on the Shulchan Aruch, in Orach Chaim Taf Reish Tzadik, and he says, I think the reason we bang and when we say Haman is to make noise in order to confuse the people that they shouldn't hear the name of this wicked Agagi. That's what you said. But it's a big chiddush, which obviously he doesn't mean it. Because if you miss one word of the Megillah, you're not Yoitze. So it must mean that we want to make noise to say as if we don't want to listen to it. We have to listen to it. What can we do? We have to listen. So right after we hear the name, we make noise as if saying we would like not to listen to it.
The Ben Ish Chai only says the first and last Haman.
Right. Reb Chaim Volozhin was once in a shul, davening Shachris. After Shachris, a guy comes over, the poor guy, and he asks for money. Reb Chaim Volozhin, we're going to speak in dollars, takes out $1 from his pocket and he gives him. And this poor guy says, Rebbe, I need $200. $200? He reaches his pocket and gives him another $1. He says, Rebbe, I need $200. $200? He reaches in and gives him $5. This guy's a professional nudge, and he keeps going. Rebbe, I need $200. Merciful Reb Chaim Volozhin gives him another $10 bill. Rebbe, what part of 200 don't you understand, the 2 or the 100? I need $200. He gives him another $5, and this went on and on. Another $5, another $10, another $5, another $2, another $1, another. Finally, I don't know how long it took. He gave him $200.
Besides what he gave him before.
Total. He wanted 200. He got 200. The poor guy looks at the Chaim Volozhin and says, I want to tell you something. It says in the Medrash that when the terrible decree was set, Eliyahu Hanovi went and called Moshe Rabbeinu. And he said, what do we do? You have to daven. Moshe called all the Avos, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And Eliyahu said to him, there's a problem down there. The decree is set and I don't think it can be cancelled. So Moshe told him you should know a rule. If the decree is written with mortar, with teeth, it can be cancelled. If it's written with blood up there, it can't be cancelled. So Eliyahu says, no, how is this one written? And Moshe Rabbeinu said to him, it's not written with blood. It's written with teeth. Therefore it can't be erased. So Eliyahu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, and how do you know? So Moshe says, look at the Megilla. Vayikra 7, it was written, le'abdam, to destroy them. Le'abdam, if you cut it in two, it's lo bedam, not with blood. Reb Chaim Volozhin heard this Chiddush, was so excited. The poor guy disappeared. And Reb Chaim runs to his Rebbe, the Gaon Mevilna. And he told him this Chiddush, and he said, The Gaon Mevilna told him, this is not a poor guy who told you this Chiddush. This is the same person who spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu who told you this Chiddush. That was Eliyahu Hanavi. It's kedai to have patience when you're talking to Anani. You never know what Chidushim are going to be revealed. You never know who's going to reveal to you the Chidushim. By the way, the Alshech has a tremendous Chiddush, and he says, you know why we give Matanos LaEvyonim? On Purim, why was this instituted? You don't find it in other Yamim Tovim. Why was it instituted Dafka here? Because this is for the Ilui Neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu davened from up there. He told Eliyahu Hanavi, I'll daven from up here. You go find somebody, a Mordechai Tzaddik down there, and we're both going to daven. I'm from up here, Mordechai from down there, and in Mitzvah Hashem we're going to cancel the decree. Because Moshe Rabbeinu was involved in our salvation, we give money, le'ilui neshama, for the elevation of Moshe Rabbeinu's soul. That's the Al Shech HaKodesh says. Anyone knows what's the name of Haman's mother? Not everybody together. Haman's mother. Haman's mother's name is Amaslai Bas Orvasi. Amatlai Bat Orvati. Okay, shkoyach. Who cares? I will ask it, we'll rephrase the question. Is there any way that Haman's mother can help us today? Got to be the strangest question you ever heard, right? Is there any way that Haman's mother that you never met, Mitzvah Hashem, you'll never meet her, can help us today?
That name, the Amtalai. I think if it's repeated a certain number of times, I think it's also someone else doing the Torah. And if you said it's for Mishpach,
Ooh, wow. The answer is in Shita Sakadmonim, this is Rishonim. Baba Basra, Tzadi Aleph Amud Aleph, and it says, the one who's writing it, Ani HaKoisev, Ra'iti Besifrei HaMerkava, De Isbehu Kabbalah. There's a Kabbalah. That if you want to find grace in the eyes of the government, of authority, say 17 times, Amaslai Bas Karnevo. That was the mother of Avraham Avinu. If you want to conquer your enemy, say 17 times, the mother of Haman, Amaslai Bas Orvati. If you want to win wars, very relevant to today, you want to win a war, say the mother of Shimshon. Her name was Slalfonis, and his sister's name was Nashik, and some say Nashian. You say this, you can win the war. And if you want the Kodesh Baruch Hu to listen to your prayer, say 17 times, the name of David HaMelech's mother, Nitzeves Bas Adel, and you have to add, Aseh leman shmecha, Aseh leman yeminecha, Aseh leman dushatecha, Aseh leman Mashiach tzidkecha, Aseh lemancha, lo lema'ani. Chiddush. Rabbi Isai, can it be? When is it that one reads the Megillah, Motzei Shabbos, 2 weeks before Purim? Everybody is healthy, no vows, and we know we can only start reading the Megillah from the 11th, the Mishnah in Megillah, from the 11th of Adar, and yet, when is it that you read Motzei Shabbos 2 weeks before Purim?
There is a gezerah.
Everybody's healthy, no gezeros, and even with gezeros, the Mishnah says it starts on Yud Aleph. You can't come on Chanukah and read the Megillah, and you can't come on Motzei Shabbos 2 weeks before, and yet, when is it you read Motzei Shabbos 2 weeks before Purim the Megillah? Surprising answer is found in Masechet Soifrim. Masechet Soifrim is one of Masechtot Ktanos in Shas. It's printed normally after Masechet Avodah Zarah. Masechet Kala Rabasi, Masechet Avadi, Masechet Geri, Masechet Mezuzah, Masechet Tzitzis, Masechet Talmud Torah. 8 Masechtot Ktanos b'Shas. One of them Masechet Soifrim. In Perek Yudal, the Lachat Zayin, it says, there was a minhag. Nahagu ha'am. The minhag is that everybody gathers Motzei Shabbos in the shuls. In the first Motzei Shabbos of Adar, you read half of the Megillah up to the words Balayla Hahu. And the second Motzei Shabbos, this is all leading to the 15th, I guess it's to prepare. And the second Motzei Shabbos, you read from Balayla Hahu until the end of the Megillah. That was the minhag back then. He says there's no... he's not Messiah in any way. This is what? We don't know this? Everybody is not doing it? I never saw it done. Don't know anybody who does this. But that's the minhag brought Masechet Soifrim. No. I guess it's like as if a preparation. I didn't ask to be here. I said, when do you read Megillah Motzei Shabbos? When? When you listen to Masechet Soifrim. Rabbi, say any connection between Zvulun and Haman? Zvulun and Haman. Zvulun and Haman. The Agol Mevilna. That's a lot of weight. Zvulun Gematria. It's written in the Torah Zamet Zayin Beis Lamed Vav Nun. Only one Vav. Gematria. It's not so early in the morning. Zvulun Gematria. 95. Zayin and Beis is 7. Lamed is 30. That's 37. Another Vav.
41. So 43.
Plus Nun. 95. Says the God Mevina. With the Koilel. Haman. 95. What's the connection between the two? Zvulun supports Torah. Because of him, we can sit and learn. Zvulun supports Yisachar. Haman is exactly the opposite. Haman wanted to take his money and to give it to Achashverosh to destroy Klal Yisrael so they shouldn't be able to learn Torah. So Zvulun is the one that stands corresponding to Haman and he stops him. And this doesn't apply only back then, it applies until today to all the Hamanim that want to stop us from learning. There are plenty of them out there. I'm not going to mention names, but there are Hamanim who want to stop us from learning, doing the same thing as Haman did. But the Zvulunim around are corresponding and they stop the Hamanim from executing their vicious plan. Until you can distinguish between Aru, Haman, and Baruch Mordechai. When you say this, it sounds like there is similarity. It's just another glass of wine will make you, will confuse you. Where is the room to comparison? It's like as if you say, you see the wing of a fly and an ocean is so close. Just drink a little more. I don't know how much you're going to drink. You're not going to confuse an ocean with a fly. It doesn't work. So what room is there for comparison between Haman and Mordechai? I think there is a lot of similarities between the two. This is fresh from the oven, Rabbi say. They both wore royal garments. They both had the royal king. The pasuk in Esther says that Achashverosh took the ring off his finger, the one who he gave to Haman, and he gave it to Mordechai. Where does Mordechai live? What's his address? The house of Haman. It was given to him. So not only that, they're both famous in their books. The pasuk says, "V'chol ma'aseh tokpo ugvuraso u'parshas gedulos Mordechai halohem ksuvim al sefer divrei hayomim," not ours, lemalchei madayu faras. Where you're going to find Haman, you're going to find Mordechai as well. They're very, very identical. Mamish, outwardly they're identical. Every morning they go out of the house, the same address. And they both are driven in a stretch limo, same royal car, by the same servants, the same chauffeur. They go into the same office. They're wearing the same thing, the same ring. They have the same position. Mishnah Lamelech. So what's the difference between them? Because seemingly they're the same. But then when you drink one more glass of wine, chas v'shalom, to lose the idea that this guy is cursed and is arash and this guy is blessed and is tzaddik, chas v'shalom. But when you drink and you say, well, what is it? Whoa, this is so similar. And then you realize, oh boy, how different they are. When Haman was appointed to this position, what did he want? Le'hashmid, le'harog, le'abed. To destroy Klal Yisrael. He wanted to increase as much fame and fortune to himself. It's all about kavod. If one old Jewish guy, long white beard, doesn't bow down to me, so the whole thing is not worth it. Supposed to Mordechai, when he gets elected, what does he do? The pasuk says, "V'doiver shalom." Every time he literally saw little kids coming out from the school. Morning, good morning, how are you? Good afternoon. He says hello to everybody. It's not about kavod. So much so, the Ibn Ezra says, why does it say here that he was so great? Ki Mordechai Yehudi Mishneh LaMelech Achashverosh V'gadol HaYehudim. The Ibn Ezra says because he walked in the ways of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Anav Mikol Adam, Mordechai was the same. The exact opposite of Haman. Chassam Sofer writes in the Drashos, the pasuk says, Mishneh LaMelech Achashverosh, and yet Gadol LaYehudim. What is Gadol LaYehudim? 2 years after he was appointed to this very prestige position, he left it all behind. And he says, you know what? I'm going to Beis HaMikdash, and I'm going to be the one in charge of the kinim. As we said before in the Mishnah in Shkalim, Psachia, Memune ala kinim. Psachia was in charge of the pairs of birds, the dove and the pigeon. The people brought the Mitzoya, a lady after she gave birth, the Zav or the Zava. Mordechai said, it's better for me to be in charge of some birds in Beis HaMikdash, to be Gadol HaYehudim, than to basically run the entire world, to be second in command to Achashverosh. So he's exactly the opposite, not looking for any fame, fortune, kavod, nothing about that. For a second he goes, wow, they're so similar. Wow, how different they are. That's why Rava says it dafka here. In other words, Rava is telling you, even from the highest position, when it's so easy to become like a Haman, pursuing honor, pursuing riches, you can still use and execute your b'chira chofshis and act like a Mordechai who is all about anava and helping others. That's what Rava's statement maybe is. Kol ha'poishet yad. What do we do with him? Anyone who does this on Purim? No yisnim, lo. Shulchan Aruch says this. Is this a kula or a chumrah? What is this?
It's
Kula or a chumrah? You're saying, depends who you're asking. The one who has to give or the one who receives, right? The question is it a kula or a chumrah? If it's a chumrah, that means everybody who comes and does this, you have to go reach in your pocket and do this. If it's a kula, that's not what it means. It means that when you give to two guys on Purim, you don't have to check their credentials. You don't have to check their bank statements. They don't have to come with certificates. I'm a real certified mideoraisa or miderabanan evion. No, as soon as you give somebody who asks for it, you're yoitze. Maran Reb Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal says, this is a kula. It's not a chumrah. You don't have to give like we always understood. You have to give every person. No, that's not what it means. It means as soon as you gave two people who say they're evyonim, who say they need the money, you are yoitze the mitzvah matanos le'evyonim. That's all it means. There was a guy who he found a real Evion midoraisa miderabanan with all the hidurim, and he was so happy. So he gave him money. He never told anybody about this guy because he wanted to ensure that next year he still has the mehudar Evion, that he should be yoitze the mitzvah. No. Rabbi Isa yesterday was Tani's Esther. Do we fast on Friday? No. And yet, no, Tani's Esther. Do we fast on Friday? Tani's Esther. No. Can it be that one has to fast Tani's Esther on Friday? Can it be that even though we just said Tani's Esther is not on Friday, it's on Thursday in a case like this, in a year like this, and yet, when is it that one has to fast on Friday? Tani Sester. Mishnah Bura Orachaim Tafreish Pei Vav Seif Koton Gimel. One who was traveling yesterday, Thursday, and he came back home at night, and people asked him, no, so how was the fast? A fast? Today? So we don't know. Today was a fast. If he is not aware that Thursday was a fast, says the Mishnah Bura, he has to fast today on Friday, and that is the answer to our question. Strange question. Matanos le'evyonim. Can it be that one is able to give matanos le'evyonim, but only on one condition? He has to give it for the sake of his late father. Otherwise, don't give matanos. We don't want your money. Matanos le'evyonim only for the ilui neshama of his father. When does this happen? Chiddush from Shlomo Zalman Auerbach Zatzal. An oinen doesn't do any mitzvahs. His father died on Purim. He doesn't do any mitzvahs, any positive mitzvahs. He doesn't say brachos. He doesn't do any positive mitzvahs. But since he's allowed to give tzedakah for the sake of his father, so he's allowed to give matanos le'evyonim in condition. And the condition that he's going to say, this is for the ilui neshama of my father, then he can do this mitzvah. Tremendous tradition. Can one get dressed up on Purim as a woman?
According to Rama, yes, you couldn't find it all.
Are you sure? Tafrei Sadi Vav Seif Ches, the Rama says, you're allowed to. He brings two opinions, and he says the Ikar is like the Svara Rishona, and you're allowed to. Many Ashkenazim don't agree. The Mishnah Bura and many others, Mishnah Bura brings many others that don't agree. In the Maaseh, we don't. But those who go according to the Rama, straight Rama, which you're allowed to. So the Maaseh, how come they don't dress up as a woman? The answer is very simple. There was a guy who wanted to do this. He wanted to get dressed up as a woman. He is still standing next to a closet. Can't find anything to wear. Can't find anything to wear. The closet is full of clothes. Full. He's still standing there. It's 2 years later. And we want to get dressed up on Purim. Maybe that's why they don't do it. Maybe. Only married women can appreciate and understand this. Rabbi Isai was Esther a tzadekes? We all agree. She was a tzadekes. Where does it say Lahedya in the Megilla she was a tzadekes? Does it say in the Megillah that Esther was a tzadekes? It's mamish, it's written mefoirash in the Megillah. Chazal say that when Klal Yisrael were in the desert, Haman fell. Depends how tzaddik the guy was. If the guy was a rasha, fell very far away from his house, his tent, and he had to walk for miles and miles and miles to get it. The more tzaddik was, the closer to his house. He was a real tzaddik. He opened the door in the morning, and the man is right there. So it must be that Esther was such a tzaddik because Haman fell on her bed. She didn't have to walk anyways. Mistam is clear and it's pashut mamash lehedi on the pasuk.
As you're talking about that, is there a connection between Haman and Haman?
No, there is.
No, besides that.
No, there is. If you find another, I'll be happy to hear. Other than it's the same letters almost. In the death marches, it's estimated that 250,000 Jews perished, were slain by the Nazis. This is the last few months of the Holocaust, and they walked, and they walked, and they walked, and they walked. They didn't give them food, didn't give them anything to drink, and they walked, and they walked, and they just. So many died, and the Nazis killed so many of them. The founder of Arachim, Yossi Wallace, tells the story of his father, Yehuda Aryeh Wallace. He was there in the death marches. And at one point, they were walking for days, and the Nazis didn't give them anything. Nothing to eat, nothing to drink. They were starving to death. They were so thirsty. And at one point, they got to a river, and the Nazis every single time invented new cruel ways. And the Nazis told them, you should go into the river, up to your knees, but don't dare drink the water. If you reach to the water with your hand, you do this motion, or if you bend down to drink, we will shoot you, and you won't live. The Nazis didn't say that if you don't drink, you will live. And most people just weren't able to. They're in the water, they feel the water. They're thirsty, so thirsty. And they bend down, or they did this with their hand. The Nazi stood on the bridge and shot everyone that he saw bending down. And no one survived this except Wallace. Somehow he survived, came to Eretz Yisrael, beautiful family. Right after the war, he was in Munich. And the Americans caught a lot of the Nazis, Machshema, and the Nazi officers. And they put billboards all over with lists and lists of names of the people that they caught. And they asked anyone, any survivors that know any testimony that they can come and testify, they should come. So he was in Munich and he saw this ad, and he's reading, and he saw the name of the commander, this cruel commander who invented this terrible thing. And he saw that they're going to put him in court. He says, I'm in. So he runs there to court. And he says, so, what do you have to say? And he starts telling the whole story, how they walked for days and days and days. And this Nazi officer told him, don't dare drink the water, we will shoot you. And he did, and he killed everybody. And at the end of the whole story, the judge says to the commander, do you admit? He says, I don't know what he's talking about, I wasn't there. Cool, calm, and collected. Wallace was so upset. He says to the judge, can I please go and stand right in front of him? I want to look in his eyes when I tell him the story. And I want him to say that he wasn't there, to my eyes. Judge says, okay. Wallace goes over, stands right next to him. And again, he repeats the whole story. And he says to him, do you deny that you did this and you were there? And the Nazi officer looks at him, cool, calm, and collected. He knew that no one survived other than Wallace. So just his word against his. And he says, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. And Wallace was so fuming, so upset. He grabbed the Nazi's ears and pulled him, and he pulled so hard that one of them was in his hands. He ripped it off his head. The American soldiers took Wallace and they arrested him, put him in jail. And he was in the same jail with some Nazi officers. A few days later, he sees from the window that they're leading this commander to be hanged. He says, this is strange, and he asks the soldiers, what's going on? The officer says, it's just, your word against his word. We're not going to believe him. So they told him, the judge was so convinced that if a person is speaking emes, only he can do such a thing. It can't be that it wasn't emes if you were able to pull somebody's ear off his head. It must be that it's emes. So he says to him, so why am I here? Why did they arrest me? He says, because we don't pull people's ears in the middle of the court. So then, Wallace told his son, Yossi Wallace, that was the happiest Purim of my life. I saw Haman being hanged, and I had Ozen Haman, I had the Haman's ear in my hand. And then he thanked Ribono Shel Olam for being arrested, because only because he was arrested, he was able to see Haman being hanged. The Pasuk says, V'mei HaPurim ha'ele lo ya'avru. The Medrash Mishlei says, Melamed, she'afilu im kol ha'moyadim yu betelim, if in all the Yamim Tovim will be cancelled, Purim will not be cancelled. How is this possible? One of the principles of our faith is Zois HaTorah lo tehe muchlefes. Torah doesn't change, Torah doesn't cancel. How can you say that the other Yamim Tovim will be cancelled? The Torah Tmima brings from his father, the Aruch HaShulchan, a beautiful thought. The other Yamim Tovim were all about open and revealed miracles. Yetzias Mitzrayim, the 10 Makos, Kriyas Yam Suf, Pesach. Shavuos, Ma'amad Har Sinai, the clouds of glory for Sukkos. This is what this Medrash means. Even if all the other Yamim Tovim's type of miracles will be cancelled, you will not see later on again open and revealed miracles. But the type of miracles that led to Purim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not even mentioned in the Megillah. Everything is as if b'derech hateva. Amishigene rises to prominence and he wants to kill us all, and then Achashverosh, who hated us even more than him, decides, you know what, maybe not, and he changes his name. All as if b'derech hateva. These type of nisim will not change, will not be cancelled. And all you need to do is to look back in history since this happened, and you'll see that in fact HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always watching over Klal Yisrael and always will. Mishe'asa nisim la'avoseinu bayamim hahem, still performs it now, and in Mitzvah Hashem we will see it in front of our eyes. B'karov. אחינו כל בית ישראל הנשוי למצר ובשיביה. העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה ובין מתחת ליבשה נתנו לקודש ברוך הוא, אם ירצה השם המקום ירחם עליהם ויוציא מצר ולבוכם מאפילו לאוירה. ומשעבוד לגאולה אשתו בעגולו ובזמן קורי ונאמר אמן.